You're listening to and watching the Bootstrapped Unicorns Entrepreneurship Podcast with Josh Pies. I'm your host, Josh Pies, and we bring entrepreneurs onto this show so we can learn from their journeys. They're full of wisdom, they're full of knowledge, and their stories usually elicit actionable, tactical information that we can apply to our individual entrepreneurial ventures. All right, entrepreneurs, here's to another episode. What is success and where do you find it? It's a question I've asked myself, well, honestly, probably my whole life. I was an entrepreneur at the starting young age of 4 years old. I kid you not. I'm going to tell that story in a little bit. But this is the journey that we're all going to be on together on the Bootstrapped Unicorn podcast. Hi, I'm Josh Pies, and I'm the host, and I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And success, it's a moving target. Success is hard to attain. Once you have it, you don't always feel it or know it. And one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given as an entrepreneur, young and all the way to my current age of 40, almost 3 years old, is mentorship and wisdom from others who have gone before and done big things and slayed big dragons. They've seen huge hurdles and had to learn how to jump over them, and they too have had mentors and guides get them over them. And that's the gift I'm craving myself, frankly. And I think it's also a gift that you're looking for too. So this podcast is going to be for we entrepreneurs. It's also going to be for anybody who knows and loves an entrepreneur that, you want to be in the know on the inspiration and the education that would help the people that are on this journey. And you can be a part of their process and their solution for finding success. So with that, the parlance of the day is that, every good podcast starts with a couple of solo casts. It's just the host getting a little orientation done. So I'd like to take a few minutes, probably a number of few minutes with you right now and let you know who I am. So again, I'm Josh Pies. In my business, we call me the chief attention getter, and I love to spend time getting people's attention. But my biggest passion, my longest passion in life has always been this crazy journey we call entrepreneurship. And true story, I was a reasonably successful entrepreneur at the young age of 4. So that was 1984. And I remember going to my grandfather because I wanted to make a gift for my mom. So my mom had this interesting problem that she kept losing her car keys. And entrepreneurship usually is solving some kind of a problem, right? You're solving a problem that the world needs solved. So you go ahead and you tackle that and you repeat the problem solved for many people and you charge for it eventually, and now you're making money. And that was not on my mind. I was 4 and I just wanted to help my mom. She lost her car keys all the time. And I remember that hilarious dance by the garage doors. She's patting pockets, looking in purses. Is it on the counter? Is it up in a drawer, cabinet? Like, where are these keys? And my friend's mom across the street, Mrs. Cooper, never lost her keys. And I was over there enough to know that this was not a problem for Mrs. Cooper. And the difference between my mom and Mrs. Cooper wasn't how much attention they had to spend on their kids or their homes. It was just the fact that Mrs. Cooper had a key rack. Okay, so I knew it was wood and it had these metal hooks, and I know my grandpa was pretty handy, so I asked him, can we make a key rack for my mom? I'm going to give it to her as a gift. Well, and this is mentor number 1 in my life. Ed Walt, my grandfather, who is an executive at Kodak. He was in the roll coating division. If you've ever used actual film, silver is placed on a substrate and put through a camera, and it turns into a picture. He ran, or was one of the people running that division to make sure that you could make your memories back then. And he's an industrial engineer by trade, and he just could make stuff and he could do things. And so he thought it was time that 4-year-old Josh needed to learn how to make stuff and do things. So he took on the task. But as we went to the hardware store, he was telling me that we were going to be forced to buy too much. And we needed to figure out what to do with the too much. Now, later in life, now I know that he was talking about overage, waste, learning how to batch process things. He was actually turning me into a manufacturer at 4 years old. So we went and got a wooden dowel, and it was a 1-inch round wooden dowel, and it was 4 feet long. And this key rack was going to be based on a wooden dowel that was about 6 to 8 inches long. And, I forget honestly the length at this point, but we were going to cut that wooden dowel, and then we're going to drill with a drill press 3 holes. And we're going to have these little hooks that we would screw into those holes. And we're going to, on the ends, put those same things. We would put hooks on the ends, so 2 more holes to drill. And then we're going to run some yarn over the top so you could use one nail on your wall and hang that dowel that had all the hooks. Key rack. From there, he encouraged me that we should finish it. So he wanted me to think about getting a bottle of stain and a bottle of varnish. And we also had to learn how to sand the edges so there were no burrs and it looked a little finished. And all of these things were things that he walked me through. Remember, I'm 4. And my mom probably didn't know this at the time. She would have had a cow. But Grandpa had me put the wooden dowel and move the radial arm saw and cut. And this is a big, bad saw. It's the type of thing that takes fingers off, but he was teaching me how to do that at 4 years old. And he would teach me about the waste, because that blade was destroying wood, and that blade was a certain size. And so we had to actually calculate for wood waste. And we didn't make one. We made a handful out of that first piece. Because when you buy all those hooks, you don't buy the hooks one at a time. You buy a package of them. And that's what we did. So we had leftovers. So my first manufacturing run didn't use a whole 4-foot dowel. I think we made 2 or 3 of them. And I gave them away to family members as gifts. And after I gifted those dowels, my grandfather, he looked at me and he was like, okay, want to make some more? I was like, yeah, but who are we going to give them to? And he goes, I think people probably want them. I'm like, okay. And he goes, so just come up with a price. Okay. Of course, I remember trying to come up with a price, and I'm pretty sure it was pennies. And he walked me through a handwritten spreadsheet, basically, a budget. He actually always used graph paper. Even to track his stocks, he used graph paper. And so he had me on graph paper figuring all of this out. It was my first brush with what would eventually be Excel. And we figured out all the numbers together and what the raw cost of a singular key rack would be. And he also had me charge for my time. So he told me what my minimum wage ought to be, because I hadn't arrived yet. So I was a minimum wage worker even in my own business. And then he said, well, we have to have profit. So I had to add, at least 20% profit on top of that. And so we did that. And then we knew what to charge for a key rack. And then he talked about quantity sales discounts and encouraged me that if I sold multiples in one sale, it'd be worth giving a discount, but we can't discount so deep that we're giving them away for free or even taking a loss. So I had to learn all of that at 4 years old. I don't think he expected what came next, though. I had zero fear talking to people at 4 years old, and I was perfectly comfortable walking my neighborhood door to door. So I was pre-selling key racks, and we had a lot of orders come in. So I was selling hundreds of key racks a year by the time I was ending my 4th into my 5th year of life. And I remember being $1,600 cash positive as a 4-year-old. And what was really cool was my grandfather, my mentor, and my investor at one point said, well, I'm investing all this money into your materials, so I do need payback because I'm an investor. Now, it was 0 interest, which was great because he's my grandpa. But I had to pay him back and learn that this stuff doesn't come for free. But, come Christmas in 1984 and 1985, I was buying big extravagant gifts for family members like I was one of the adults because I could afford it. I had started my journey, and that journey is something I've never stopped. I have been an entrepreneur, and I'll tell you a couple more stories. Not all of them are as swimmingly successful as my 4-year-old one, but I've never stopped trying because entrepreneurship, once you figure it out and once you get that feeling, it is a little bit infectious. And you may end up on that journey for life. In fact, I'll tell you, a friend of mine used to be a vice president at Walt Disney World. And I told him, I said, the only way I'd ever stop being an entrepreneur is if the Imagineers would hire me at a pretty good pay scale. But that sounds really fun. That's the only way I'd stop doing it. And he laughed and he goes, and we'll never hire an entrepreneur because they're always an entrepreneur. They can't stop. I hope that resonates with some of you watching this because I know you can't stop either, which means we need each other. And again, it's another great reason for this podcast. But I was doing really well as a 4 and 5-year-old, and I started that entrepreneurial bug. And then around 8 years old, because I had figured out batch manufacturing, I found a new product. That new product was plastic cups could be melted. You can actually use permanent marker and paint on them first, and you melt these plastic cups, And I did it right in my mom's oven. And then you get a hot poker, and we were using skewers, my mom's shish kebab skewers. I'm not sure if she knew. Actually, she helped me with this. We'd get a candle, and we'd heat the end of it, and I'd pierce a hole in it, and then I'd get ribbon, and I'd tie it in there, and guess what? It's a stained glass, plastic cup, Christmas ornament. And so it was a seasonal product. This was my first seasonal product, but come October, November, I was right back on that route, going door to door selling. And we were doing pretty good. I remember being up $400 or $500 during the 1988 Christmas season. And for whatever reason, I brought on, actually same family, the Cooper family. Mrs. Cooper, she had the key rack. Her son, Jeff, one of my best friends for life, he came on as my business partner. What did he bring to the table? I think he was my friend, and that's all he brought to the table. And we learned the hard way that when you bring on a business partner, you bring on opinions, and you bring on other decisions that you may or may not make. So I'll tell you a true story. I got in so much trouble. I went to Mrs. Yanamagi's house and sold her a Christmas ornament. But Jeff knew the Yanamagis way better than I did, and he didn't get a chance to go there. So we went and we sold again, and she felt so much pressure from Jeff being there, she bought more. Then she called Mrs. Cooper and read her the riot act, and Mrs. Cooper had to pay her back for the embarrassment with buying back the ornament. And that was the day our partnership dissolved, and I had to pay out Jeff a couple $100 as a little kid. And honestly, and Jeff, I'm sorry for saying this in public, but you hadn't pulled your weight, and it was my fault because I invited you into something and didn't understand what a two-way street was then. And I'll tell you, experience is a great teacher. But I had gone it alone in that situation, and I didn't know who to ask for help, and I didn't have a mentor through that. My grandfather found out about it later and kind of shook his head. He was wishing he was there, but he wasn't, because I had confidence and I went it alone. We entrepreneurs know that to a certain degree, don't we? But life is a great teacher, and I wish I had an entrepreneur mentor in that moment, and I didn't. And again, that goes back to why I think it's so important we have these conversations. The Bootstrapped Unicorn podcast is one access point that you have to some mentorship moments and some ideas and some concepts that might grow you, and hopefully a lot of inspiration. If I don't have something of inspiration to kind of hinge my week on every week, it feels a little bit empty, and my goals feel like they're smaller than they should be or could be. And so maybe by subscribing to this and spending time with us, you'll have a little bit more of that leg up that you need. So later in life, I went to high school and focused on baseball for a while, and I wasn't really an entrepreneur. But as life goes, I started needing money. And for whatever reason, I never went and deliberately got a job. There was a pathway that just never came into my mind. So come about 18, 19 years old, I'm out I was borrowing some money and buying a beater truck and a beater trailer and the equipment to go and start doing a house painting service. And I sold 4 or 5 houses, and I went and started slogging through during my early college years, painting houses so that I could not only stay alive, but start putting money away. And every summer, it netted me enough money that I could live for the entire school year off of that, until eventually, and of course, this podcast episode is going to be named 7 Businesses Before 25. And if you're keeping score here, we've got key racks, we've got Christmas ornaments, and we've got a painting business. I had 4 more before 25, and we're only to 20 years old. Between the time I was 20 and 25, I tried writing a children's book, and buying an LLC and putting some ownership and some equity around that, and getting some help getting it published and bringing it to publishers and trying to make the go of being a author, and that went nowhere fast. I tried creating a product for baseball players because I was actually recruited to be a D1 catcher. Unfortunately, I got injured and couldn't, but I knew the game really well, and my father and I worked on MBP, Mounds by Pies. It was a portable pitcher's mound so that in a gymnasium setting, you could have a proper, pitching, catching setup. And we built prototypes and we tried it. And that was also destined to go nowhere fast. And on top of that, this was the early internet days, we were going to create something that eventually somebody did. If you ever watch the Puppy Bowl, where it's the alternate Super Bowl, where it's a whole bunch of puppies playing on TV for like 6 or 7 hours, we tried to launch Puppy Time, which was for pet lovers. They could go to the website and just watch puppies play as their moment of daily zen, and it was going to be a subscription platform. And so I was out actually with my girlfriend then, who became my wife, filming puppies for like months. And then the streaming technology that we had access to was just not up to snuff, and we couldn't pull it off because we didn't have the deep pockets with investors. Because I bootstrap everything. Why? Maybe because I'm a glutton for punishment. Maybe it's just how I'm wired, but I bootstrap. And so Puppy Time also didn't go anywhere. And then my car got hit while I was driving to school, and I had no way to get to school. I went and financed a pickup truck with a snowplow because I could make my truck pay for itself. That was basically an accident, but I knew that I could figure out how to make that make money because I have confidence and I have ingenuity, and I was going to do it. That one took. Within a couple of years, what originally was called Snow Logic, I had a degree in philosophy, still have it, I guess, and I was really into the logic and inquiry courses. So Snow Logic was my snow plowing business. It became the Logic Group because we actually were getting to a lot of logistics. Trucking was definitely a focus. I ended up with 35 employees plowing 25 million square feet of parking space every time it snowed. It was a multi-million-dollar business with more equipment than I could even quantify. It was a hilarious adventure. We were being written up in national magazines for the rapid scale and trajectory that we were on. And at the same time, believe it or not, I was getting my MBA in technology entrepreneurship and working over at RIT with all of the people in the venture startup space. So I was getting my head around what it really meant to be formal in the business generation and creation. I just kind of bootstrapped and winged it my entire life, but I had confidence, and I knew that if I broke it, I'd just have to fix it, and I'd just keep going. And now I'm in a crowd of people who kind of get it, and that was illuminating and brilliant and wonderful. But at the same time, I was growing fast. And it's another podcast for another day, but I'll tease this, that after the rapid scaling of the Logic Group, it was too far too fast. And that didn't last very long. But for a nice amount of time, my business was very high net worth and kind of notable. And in years later, we've had, after the age of 25, wonderful success as the owners of C47 Film Associates, tons of accolades and awards, hilarious and wonderful opportunities to meet and feature great people in video. And we've just spent our lives ever since telling stories. And I say we because my wife and I have been on this journey together with amazing employees and freelancers who all become friends and family. I am blessed beyond belief to be on this entrepreneurial journey. And now I think I'm going to tie this with a bow and just say that the Bootstrapped Unicorn podcast is kind of, I don't know, Josh 5.0, 6.0, whatever version of life I'm on, where my eternal fascination with entrepreneurship is growing into an opportunity to spend life doing entrepreneurship with fellow entrepreneurs. And those fellow entrepreneurs are the people who are going to come on this show. And it's you, the audience, that I absolutely cherish and value. We entrepreneurs are a community if we take it as such. And I hope you will take it as such as well. So thank you for taking a moment with me, learning a little bit about my background and how I came up in entrepreneurship. And I'm actually going to wrap this up with, I want to offer you a little free gift because I want you to think of me every time you use this. Last year, we innovated a little product. It's called Get Seen. It's the Get Seen digital business card. And in the show notes, you'll see getseen.pro. You can go sign up for it. It's kind of like Linktree or a lot of these other link aggregators, or if you've ever met somebody with a dot card and they swipe it at your phone and the business card shows up on somebody's phone. A lot of those things you pay for. But I just give this away to fellow entrepreneurs and anybody who's in sales or marketing. You could use this tool And there's tutorials right on there on how to use it and how to implement it. But this is me just giving it to you. It's not like it's a sponsor. I'm not going to make money off of this. What I am going to do is hopefully plant in the back of your mind that there's somebody in your corner. There's an entrepreneur out there who thought well enough of you to give you this gift. And I hope you'll think of us every time you use it. And I hope it's helpful. So with that, I'm Josh Pies. I am absolutely serious about entrepreneurship. The question, what is success and how do you find it? We need to answer that together. So join me on this journey and I'll see you on the next episode. Holy cow, it's the end of another episode. Bootstrapped Unicorns, I'm glad you stayed to the end. I want to remind you that if you are not following us in social media or in the podcast ecosystem or on YouTube, which of course isn't a follow, it's a subscribe, we know this, then you really owe it to yourself to go do that. We understand that entrepreneurship can be a lonely road, and it takes a team of all of us to come together to grow our understanding and build ideas and give opportunities to ourselves and each other. This is one way you can do that. This week, your next step, if you haven't done this already, is to go find us. We are Bootstrapped Unicorns on YouTube. I personally, on TikTok, am C47 Films CEO. Go over to Instagram, we're Bootstrapped Unicorns Podcast. And on Facebook, this is really important, we have a private group, the Bootstrapped Unicorns Entrepreneurship and Marketing Group. It is application only, but it's only a couple of questions and it's meant for entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs. So if you have every intention to do something entrepreneurial, you have a place here. And it's not just me and my great team. It's tons of entrepreneurs who have joined the room and are helping each other. You can ask a question and get a lot of opinions that, frankly, many of them are wildly well educated and helpful. So join the group, give yourself another leg up on your journey. We are all in this together. We here at C47 Films and our podcast are here for you. So again, I'm Josh Pies, the host of Bootstrapped Unicorns. I am pulling for you and excited to see you next week for the next episode.